Welcome to the Chiefs briefing for the June 21st, 2022 Democratic Party primary. On behalf of our electoral board and general registrar, I want to thank you for serving as a chief or assistant chief. Note that we have a new electoral board chairman, Christopher Hensel, who began his term in January 2022. We also have a new general registrar and director of elections, Eric Spicer, who was appointed in March 2022. You may know Eric as he served as our election manager for 4 years. He was also the City of Alexandria's election administrator for 21 years. Finally, Cheryl Jones was appointed Deputy General Registrar in April 2022. She's been with our office for more than 10 years, including serving as the Assistant Registrar for absentee voting for the last 5 years. My name is Ravi Udeshi, and I'll be beginning this briefing. I'm very happy to be joined by some of my team to present this briefing, including Alina Selnick-Escobar, Election Officer Coordinator, Abigail Peters, who manages all of our Chief and Assistant Chief assignments, and Jean Faubel, Election Officer, Staff Member, and Trainer Extraordinaire. Let's go through an overview of this election. First, what's the role of a Chief and an Assistant Chief? For those of you who may be serving for the first time, it's important to know that the Chief and Assistant Chief work as a team to supervise precinct operations, manage and rotate staff, assist non-routine voters, and to work with authorized representatives, among many other things. Now, almost everything we're going to go over in this briefing is covered in more detail in your Chief's notebook. It's very important to review the notebook before Election Day, so you know where things are and you can quickly find them. All of you will receive a printed Chief's notebook, and it's currently available online at our training website for you or your election officers to review. Note that we have made some significant updates to the notebook this time. One example is that we've added a table of contents to help you find each item. In the online version of the Chief's notebook, the table of contents is clickable. Click on a section and it'll jump you right to that page. The most exciting change in the Chief's notebook are many new and updated Election Day guides. In the past, we've had one set of color handouts with instructions for opening and closing your voting equipment, and a different but similar set of instructions in the Chief's notebook. Well, we've now unified those two so they are one and the same. The new guides have large pictures and simple, clear instructions. All these guides are provided as handouts to each precinct, so you can give them to your officers performing that task. But we've also included an exact copy in the Chief's notebook. The guides you see on the screen, which have a green banner at the top, are for things you need to do during opening procedures. We've provided 6 opening guides, including those for poll pads, express votes, DS200s, assembling the drop box, assembling sneeze guards, and for hanging signs and posters. Next, we have guides for during the day, which all have a yellow banner. These cover the various areas your election officers will rotate among during the day. You should take each of these guides and either give them to the officer serving in that function or post them in the appropriate area. We provided 7 during the day guides, including for the entrance and drop box, the check-in table, the ballot table, the voting booths, the DS200 scanner, for assisting curbside voters, and for turnout surveys. Finally, we've also provided you with guides for closing procedures, most of which have a red banner. There are 11 closing guides, including for closing poll pads, express votes, DS200s, the collector officer duties, for securing voted ballots, securing unvoted ballots, a required signature checklist, and 4 checklists for where to return items. We hope each of these guides proved much more helpful than they have in the past for you. Now let's talk about this election. On June 21st, 2022, there will be only a Democratic primary in Fairfax County. The Republican Party chose to select its candidates through alternative means. The primary we're having will only be in the 8th Congressional District, and there's only one contest on the ballot, with 2 candidates. And in a primary, there are no write-ins. Now remember, in Virginia, voters do not register by party. That means any qualified voter may vote in this election. Never ask a voter for their party affiliation. It's also very important to ensure that before each voter is checked in, that they understand they are voting in a Democratic primary. The last thing you want is for a voter to be checked in, look at the ballot, and realize they don't want to vote it and leave the polling place. This is known as a fleeing voter, but if your officers follow proper check-in procedures, it should never happen. Based on current CDC, state, and county guidance, face masks are optional this election for voters, election officers, authorized representatives, and anyone else in the polling place. Of course, anyone may still choose to wear a face mask if they want to. We will continue to provide each precinct with some PPE supplies, including 4 clear acrylic sneeze guards for use at the check-in table, ballot table, and other areas, a box of face masks for any officers or voters who wish to wear one, disinfectant wipes to sanitize voting surfaces as needed, and hand sanitizer for voters to use as they exit the polling place. Each precinct will also receive 5 to 7 total election officers, including the chief, assistant chief, 2 collector officers, any language officers, and regular officers. 3 to 5 poll pads. We are also providing each precinct with an additional iPad, which we'll discuss more later. 2 DS200 scanners, 2 express vote ballot marking devices, and ballots for at least 25% of your registered voters. For reference, in the primary 1 year ago, about 8% of active registered voters voted in person on Election Day. Now, we do have some exciting updates related to your poll pads this election. First, every precinct is receiving brand new poll pad devices. These iPads are the newest iPad models, which are much faster and have a cellular data connection to improve connectivity. The new poll pads are packed in individual cases, which include all peripherals and are about the size of a lunchbox. However, these new poll pads have the exact same software as before, so you don't need to learn anything new. We've also issued each precinct 1 additional iPad, which does not contain the voter poll book. For any provisional voters, we'll ask you to record them on the paper log form, as well as enter them in a new electronic provisional ballot log, which is loaded on this special iPad. This will help us process and assist provisional voters faster after each election. Next, for your regular poll pads, how will you update them with the final voter file? This election, the poll pads have been packed in the large gray carts and delivered to each precinct. When you visit your site for setup on the Monday before the election, you should now open and update your poll pads. If you're not able to update your poll pads on Monday, you can still do so on election morning. Finally, during closing procedures, we are asking you to leave all your poll pads powered on when you pack them into their cases. This will help us import voter check-ins into the secure election database more quickly after each election. For this election, you should set up and use exactly 1 DS200 and 1 express vote. One big benefit of only opening and using 1 DS200 scanner is that it will make it easier during closing procedures because you will only have 1 set of machine tapes to manage. This is a pretty small election, and we don't expect that you'll need to open your backup machines, but you should be ready to do so if needed. During opening procedures, the DS200 scanners will print 4 zero reports, demonstrating that there were 0 votes on the machine before voting began. During closing procedures, the DS200 scanners will print 4 results reports, which will show how many votes each candidate received. You will attach both a 0 report and a results report to 4 documents: the SOR-A or original, the SOR-B or copy, the yellow printed return sheet, and a new form, the precinct results notice, which is posted on the door of the polling place. Speaking of new forms, there are a handful of new forms this election. Our goal is to make things easier for you, while still complying with all required state laws and procedures. So in fact, some of these forms replace past forms, and we'll go into more detail about each of these forms later in the briefing. But even as we've added new forms, we've simplified or eliminated other forms. For example, the compensation sheet is only 1 page now. We've also made significant changes to the statement of results to make it easier and quicker to complete. In doing so, we were able to eliminate the poll pad certification form entirely. If you're not sure how to complete any of these forms, don't worry. You can always call us on or before Election Day for help. Finally, let's talk a little bit about authorized representatives, often known as poll watchers. Remember that authorized representatives must submit a written authorization form. Authorized representatives may move around the voting room, but they should not disrupt the voting process. Always use common sense and judgment to balance the rights of authorized representatives with your duty of maintaining the security, accuracy, and integrity of the election process. Remind authorized representatives that they have the right to observe the election process, but not participate in the process. They should not talk to or interact with voters, and if they have an issue or concern, they should bring it to the attention of you, the chief or the assistant chief, or us here at the Office of Elections, or the party or candidate they are representing.
Hi, my name's Alina, and I'm going to take you through some important reminders for before Election Day. You should have already received your precinct roster and contacted your officers. Your precinct roster lists all the officers assigned to your precinct, as well as their contact information, the number of elections they've served in, and if they've been assessed for any language skills. This election, every precinct has been assigned 5 to 7 officers. This includes the chief, assistant chief, and any language or collector officers. If you haven't contacted your officers yet, make sure you do so soon. You should have also received a polling place info sheet and contacted your polling place. When you contact your polling place, you want to make sure that you have a mutually agreed upon setup time, and you want to verify the election day contacts. This information is on the polling place info sheet. It's especially important that you verify the 5 a.m. election day contact. This is just in case you get locked out of your polling place. You want to have the right number to call. Another thing to take a look at before Election Day is your supply list. You can find the supply list in your chief's notebook. It has all of the supplies that you'll need and where you can find them. If you do have trouble finding something, contact Kay, our supply manager. Kay wanted me to share with you all a couple of reminders about the black rolling Chiefs kit. The prohibited area sign is now packed in the black kit, so you can find it there. Also in the kit are going to be the clippers. You can find those in the 2020 coin pouch. You're going to need those to cut any seals, so make sure you bring those with you. If you're looking for scissors, sticky notes, or the stapler, they're going to be in the blue pencil pouch. And the number 7 orange pouch is also going to be in the black rolling kit. You can use that for any small lost and found items like a driver's license. We get the black rolling kits on election night, so we'll find those items immediately. Now we're at the day before the election. The Monday before the election, you'll receive the sheriff's envelope. It'll be delivered to your home, but you don't need to be home to receive it. On Monday, you should also set up the polling place. Since Monday is a holiday, Fairfax County schools are usually not open. We've made arrangements with them for them to be available from 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. and have school personnel available. Make sure you contact your polling place to find a mutually agreed upon time within that window. Another important note about setup is tape on the gym floors. Do not put any blue tape on the gym floors. It ruins the floor. Another thing that we want to make sure we keep in nice condition are all of the pouches we send out. We do reuse those every election, so use your checklist in your notebook to make any marks. Don't write on the pouches or badges. During setup on Monday, you should open and update your poll pads. Start this first. The process should take about 15 to 30 minutes, but you can do it on all devices simultaneously. If you have any issues, we'll be here in the office, so just give us a call. If you cannot set up on Monday, you'll have to update the poll pads on election morning. Make sure you bring your rolling kit and your sheriff's envelope with you to Monday setup. You're going to especially need the machine certification form for when you open the cart and retrieve the poll pads. You'll have to record the poll pad seals, and once you're done with the update, put the poll pads back in the case. You'll have to record the number of the yellow seal you used to secure them, and of course the seal for the gray cart. Now I'm going to show you a video on how to update the poll pads. Let's go over how to update your poll pads. The very first thing you'll need to do before you even open the poll pad application is activate the cellular plan. You'll need to do this on each of your poll pads. First, find the Settings application on the device and tap the icon. On the left panel, scroll down to Cellular Data. You'll be presented with a list of different carriers. Find Other at the very bottom of the list. You'll see this card asking you to add the cellular plan. Tap on the blue Install Cellular Plan icon. It may take a few moments for your device to activate the cellular data. Once the device is finished activating the data plan, you'll see the word Active under Verizon. You'll also notice that in the top right-hand corner, there are now some data bars next to the Wi-Fi symbol. Once you've done these steps, you can go ahead and click on the Home button and launch the poll pad application. Tap on the poll pad icon with the lime green P at the bottom of your screen. Before you hit Import and update your poll pad, tap on the menu on the top left-hand corner of the screen. You'll see Exit Application in red letters at the top right-hand side of the screen. Tap on that. When you're presented with this card, tap Exit Application. The poll pad app will close and take you back to the main screen of the device. Simply relaunch the poll pad app by tapping on that same poll pad icon at the bottom of your screen. By exiting and relaunching the poll pad application on all of your devices, you've ensured that the poll pad is on the right election. Verify this by looking for the election name in the center of your screen. Once you've verified this, you're ready to import the voter data file. Tap Import on the top right-hand corner of the screen. Once you see the Import Voter File card, tap Import. Tap Yes on the Export Voter History, and Yes when prompted to download voters. You'll see that the device is downloading. This process might take a few minutes. You should see the downloading percentage grow. Once the device has updated, you'll see this success message. Tap OK. Tap OK on any other download messages. The device will return you to this home screen. Verify the last imported date underneath the election title in the blue banner at the top of the screen. The last imported date and time should be just a few moments ago. Once you've verified this, verify that the election title, date, and your location are correct. Once you've done so, you're ready to start checking in voters. Now I want to take you through some notes about opening the polls. All officers should arrive by 5 a.m. We have had some officers arrive at the wrong location, especially if it's a co-located precinct, so make sure to verify that the officers are on your final roster and then swear them in. Don't wait for any latecomers to swear in your group. If anybody does arrive a little late, you can swear them in separately. If any officers do not arrive, call us by 5:30 and we may be able to send a replacement. Another important note about calling is to please use your precinct number and name. For example, I might say I'm calling from 100 Patriot, not from Lincoln High School. This is the ballot receipt form. I want you to note that this form is not reflected in the Chief's notebook or your return checklist, but as you can see in the top right-hand corner of the form, it should be returned in the number 2 blue pouch. When opening boxes of ballots, an officer should sign this form to acknowledge that you have received the correct number of ballots. For example, if your form notes there are 500 ballots, verify that you have 5 packs of ballots. As a reminder, you should only set up one DS200 and one express vote. Be prepared to set up your second as a backup if needed. If you need any more extension cords, be sure to ask your rover before Election Day. If on the poll pad screen you see a red cloud icon in the top right-hand corner, don't worry about it. This is expected behavior. Call us between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. if you have an issue that prevents you from opening the polls. For other less pressing issues, call us after 6:30. An issue that might prevent you from opening the polls is something like not being able to open a voting machine. Your DS200 isn't working. If it's something like you can't find your compensation sheet, give us a call after 6:30 and we'll be able to help you then. We want to make sure that during that first hour, you're focusing on getting the polls open for voters. The last thing I want to cover with you is accessibility. Be mindful of accessibility when setting up the voting room. Make sure that you maintain clear paths of travel. Verify the path of travel before and on Election Day. Also ensure that your curbside voting area is adequately set up.
Hi everyone, I'm Abigail. I've been working for the Office of Elections for many years, and now I'm responsible for assigning chiefs and assistant chiefs. Today we're going to talk about what to do during the day. It's important for each voter to understand what kind of election they're voting in. The election officer at the entrance should remind voters there is only a Democratic primary today. Election officers at the check-in table should say, "I am checking in voter name for the Democratic Party primary." Remember to speak clearly and look for signs the voter understands. When checking in voters, you must see the confirmation screen before issuing the voter a ballot or voter permit card. If you don't see this screen, the voter has not been checked in. Chief and assistant chiefs should watch election officers when they check in the first voter to make sure they complete check-in and get this screen. For example, you should do this at 6 a.m. and whenever you rotate your officers. Now let's go over the new precinct data sheet, which replaces the line length data sheet. The purpose of this form is to track important numbers once an hour during the day, especially the number of voters checked in on the poll pads and the number of ballots cast on the DS200 scanner. You can give this form to an election officer to fill out during the day. Let's walk through the example on your screen. In the first 2 columns, you're tracking 2 items: the number of voters in line at the poll pads and the number of poll pads open for check-in. On your screen, you can see that at 6:30 a.m., 4 voters are in line at the poll pads and there are 2 check-in stations open. By 8 a.m., we can see there were 0 voters in line and still 2 check-in stations. These numbers help ensure we assign enough election officers to each precinct in future elections. Now let's look at the last 3 columns. At 6:30 a.m., there were 25 voters checked in on the poll pads, 3 voters checked in who have not yet cast their ballots, and 22 ballots cast on the DS200 scanner. As you can see, the number of voters checked in, 25, equals the number of voters who will cast their ballot or have already cast their ballot, 3 plus 22. If at any point during the day the numbers no longer add up correctly, try to figure out why. Did a voter not get checked in properly? Did a voter who was checked in leave without casting their ballot? Or did something else happen? Make sure to document in your chief's notes, or we may need to call you the next day for an explanation. Finally, at the end of the day, also record the time the last voter is checked in at the bottom of the form. There's one more section of the precinct data sheet. At the bottom of the sheet is where you will record the number of ballots in each pack you've opened. For example, this precinct opened 3 packets, each containing 100 ballots. You'll use these numbers when completing the SOR. Now let's turn to the turnout surveys. You should submit these online surveys 3 times throughout the day to report the number of voters checked in and the number of provisional voters. A good tip is to schedule alarms on your phone so you don't forget, or even better, delegate this task to an officer and give them the handout with instructions and links to access the survey. Use the Chief's notes throughout the day to record equipment problems, Election Day incidents, voter registration issues, your own observations, comments, and suggestions. Make sure the Chief and Assistant Chief print and sign their names on the bottom of the first page. Finally, let's talk about the election officer evaluation form. Help us help you. Tell us about your election officers who are amazing and officers who may need improvement. Complete the form by 5 p.m. during Election Day so you don't have to worry about it during closing procedures.
Hello, my name is Jean, and I'm a member of the election officer team. I will now be speaking about non-routine and provisional voters. As a chief or assistant chief, you will help process all non-routine voters who are referred to you by your election officers because for some reason they could not be checked in on the poll pad. The non-routine section in the chief's notebook summarizes how to handle the most common non-routine situations. But for more details and for additional situations, you should consult the what ifs. The most common non-routine situation is the inactive voter. Voters can become inactive if it appears that the voter may have moved but did not update their registration. So how do you process an inactive voter? It's very straightforward. First, ask the voter if they have moved. If the answer is yes, stop and use the moving conditions in the what ifs. If the answer is no, simply ask the voter to complete an affirmation of eligibility form. Now the voter can be checked in routinely. And on the poll pad, make sure you select the voter signed oath flag. That's it. One form and one flag on the poll pad. And reminder, you do not need to call the office for this common situation. What happens if a voter comes into your polling place and they have their absentee ballot in hand, but want to vote in person instead? The voter is permitted to vote a regular ballot after they have surrendered their absentee ballot to you. So you're first going to verify on the voter record in the poll pad that their absentee status is shown as either issued or unmarked. If the ballot is still sealed in the envelope, ask the voter to open the envelope and remove the ballot to verify that the ballot is being surrendered. Ask the voter to write absentee surrendered in large letters across the front of their ballot. And the voter can also choose to fill in all the ovals to obscure their selections. Put the ballot in envelope number 4. Now you can check in the voter routinely on the poll pad. Some non-routine situations may require you to issue a provisional ballot, which will then be adjudicated shortly after the election by the Electoral Board. This slide shows you the front of the small provisional envelope in which the ballot will be sealed, and a provisional notice you would give the voter which explains their rights as a provisional voter. The provisional voters section of the notebook covers both when and how to offer a provisional ballot to a voter. It's important to follow the provisional checklist for each provisional voter. As indicated on the slide, if you have a no ID voter, ask them to complete an ID confirmation statement. If they do so, you can check the voter in routinely on the poll pad. make sure you select the voter-signed oath flag. If you have a voter who is in the wrong precinct, strongly encourage them to go to their registered precinct so that their vote can be counted. Virginia law requires a voter to vote in their registered precinct for their vote to count. Of course, if the voter is unable to or unwilling to go to the registered precinct, you can always offer them a provisional ballot. I want to remind you about 5 very important things you need to remember about provisional ballots. First, you never check in a provisional voter in the poll pad. Second, you never let the voter scan the ballot on the DS-200, so you need to keep that voter at the chief's table under your supervision while giving them privacy until the voter hands you the ballot sealed in the provisional envelope. Third, make sure that both you and the voter fill out the green provisional envelope completely and that you both sign the envelope. Remember to select a reason code on the back of the envelope and do not write in the electoral board block. Fourth, the electoral board can't open the envelope until after they have decided to count it. So, write any additional information on the outside of the envelope. You can write it either on the envelope or staple notes to the envelope. And fifth, only the electoral board decides whether a provisional ballot can be counted, so do not tell anyone their ballot will or will not be counted. You will need to keep a log of all the provisional ballots that were issued in your precinct. There are 2 formats of the provisional ballot log you will be working with, a paper format and the electronic format. You need to enter the same information on both the paper log and the new electronic log. For each provisional voter, copy the information the voter wrote on the provisional envelope onto the log. Make sure to include the last 4 digits of the voter's Social Security number and circle the reason code. Page 20 of the What Ifs explains what situation each reason code number applies to. Each precinct will receive an additional iPad that contains only the digital format of the provisional ballot log. This device is for a pilot of a new electronic version of the log. The goals for this pilot are to reduce the need for manual entry of the provisional voter information and to produce more quickly the information the electoral board needs for its review process. You can identify the provisional pad by the opening background screen, which differs from the background screen that you will see when you open the check-in poll pads. This screen has vivid purple colors on a mostly black background and contains only the shortcut, which you can see at the bottom of the screen, to access the electronic log. You will not update the provisional pad with the voter file. Make sure you let your poll pad team know about the provisional pad so they can give it to you, and do not confuse it with the check-in poll pads with the voter file. And one final very important note about provisional ballots. The electoral board, and only the electoral board, decides whether a provisional ballot is counted. Do not tell someone their ballot will be counted. It is the electoral board's decision.
Hi, it's Ravi again. Let's go through the last section on how to close the polls on election night. First, here's one of those new forms I mentioned earlier, the election night number sheet. This is a very simple form where any officer should record 3 quick things. How many DS-200 scanners you used, 1 or 2, how many curbside voters you had, and how many provisional ballots you issue. You should complete this form first during closing procedures. As in past elections, each precinct has been assigned 2 collector officers who will leave the precinct shortly after 7 p.m. They will drive in the same car to the Fairfax County Governance Center, and they will not sign most closing documents. Make sure the collector officers take 3 items with them: the election night number sheet, the triplock security bag containing absentee ballots from the drop box, and a purple pouch containing 4 USB flash drives from both DS200 scanners. Now you need to make sure you remove 2 flash drives from each DS200 scanner for a total of 4, exactly 4 USB flash drives. In most precincts, you will only open and use one DS200 scanner. So for the machine you opened and used, follow the full closing instructions. For the machine you don't open, leave that machine powered off, unlock the case, remove the seals, and retrieve the USB flash drives. And record all required information on the machine certification form. When your officers are packing the poll pads, make sure they keep them powered on. As you can see in the picture, the poll pad screen is still on even though the poll pad is in the case. The screen may dim after 1 or 2 minutes of being unplugged, and that's okay. Why are we doing this? Well, by keeping the poll pads powered on, they'll begin synchronizing with the secure election server after 7 p.m. during closing procedures, allowing us to import and process voter check-ins much more quickly after the election. Now, the precinct results notice is a replacement for a past form. Previously, you printed closing tapes from each DS200 scanner, reviewed them for the vote totals, wrote the vote totals on the call sheet form, and posted this form on the door of the polling place. Now, you will simply take the printed tapes from each DS200 scanner, attach them to this form, and post it on the door of the polling place. That's it. Try to post them inside a glass pane so they are visible from outside, but still protected from the weather or other outside elements. Now, the statement of results, the most important form you complete during closing procedures, has been significantly updated this election. We've tried to make each section as easy and quick to complete as possible. On the front of the form, record the number of voters checked in on the poll pads, the number of curbside voters, and the number of ballots cast on each DS200. On the back of the form, you will account for the number of standard or pre-printed ballots you were issued and how you use them. There's no complicated math to do. First, just write down each of the required numbers, then add them up, and finally write the total at the bottom of that section. That's it. Make sure all election officers present during closing procedures sign this form. The signatures are now on the back of the SOR, so don't forget this very important step, or you or your officers will have to come to our office after election day to sign. As before, there are 2 copies of the statement of results, now known as the statement of results A, or the original, and the statement of results B, or the copy. Make sure to copy all information from the SOR A to the SOR B and ensure officers sign both copies. The hand count report is the last new form for this election, and it replaces a section of the statement of results. If any ballots stored in the DS200 auxiliary compartment during the day cannot be scanned on the DS200 at the end of the day, you will need to hand count those ballots. You would record the results on this form. But in almost every precinct, if you have no hand counted ballots, simply check the box at the top of this form and you're all done. There are a number of documents that require signatures from the chief, assistant chief, and all election officers. For these documents, the chief should always sign in position 1, the assistant chiefs should sign in position 2, and the 2 collector officers should sign in positions 3 and 4. All other election officers may sign in the remaining positions. Try to have all officers sign in the same spot on each form. So for example, the officer who signed in position 5 on the oath form should sign on position 5 on all other forms. Before you finish packing everything on election night, use the required signature checklist to ensure that all officers have signed all required documents. Assign one officer to ensure all forms have the required signatures. Then, the chief should double check. We don't want to have to ask you to come to our office in the days following the election, which is why this is so important. And remember, you should never have officers pre-sign forms and labels during the day. Now, when you finish closing procedures, make sure to call or text your rover to let them know that you're all done. And the chief needs to drive 5 items to one of the return depots. And those 5 items are the black rolling kit, the green poll pad cases, plural, because you have more than one now, your voted ballot boxes, your unvoted ballot boxes, and finally the windshield sign, which you post on your windshield as you drive up to help us identify your precinct. This election, chiefs will return materials to one of 2 return depots, either the Fairfax County Government Center or the Mount Vernon Government Center. Your precinct's assigned depot is listed in the chief's notebook, but if you want to return to a different depot, just email us by Friday, June 17th. If you're a chief returning materials to the Fairfax County Government Center, make sure to follow signs to the correct drop-off location. Don't accidentally get in the line for collector officers who also return the materials here. Now, this map is also in your chief's notebook. Well, we're in the home stretch now. Let me turn it over to the Honorable Kate Hanley, Secretary of the Electoral Board, to swear you in. Please stand and raise your right hand.
Hello, I'm Kate Hanley, Secretary of the Electoral Board, and I'm here to swear in our election officials. If you'll raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will perform the duties for this election according to the law and the best of my ability, and that I will studiously endeavor to prevent fraud, deceit, and abuse in conducting this election. Thank you and congratulations.
Now that you have completed the briefing and been sworn in for this election, there's just one more thing you need to do to receive credit for completing this briefing. Log in to the Election Officer portal, go to the Training tab, and scroll down and take a short quiz to demonstrate you watched this briefing. Note that if you're watching this briefing, but you're not actually assigned as a chief or assistant chief, you will not see or be able to access the quiz. You have now completed the chief's briefing for this election. If you have any questions after watching this briefing, remember that we are offering an optional Zoom question and answer session exclusively for chiefs and assistant chiefs on Friday, June 17th at 1 p.m. You may submit questions when registering, or you can submit questions live during the Q&A. But if you can't watch live, that's okay. We'll email a recording of the Q&A to all chiefs and assistant chiefs afterwards. If you have any other questions, feel free to email us at electionofficers@fairfaxcounty.gov or call us at 703-324-4735 anytime. Thank you so much. And on behalf of all my colleagues here at the Fairfax County Office of Elections, we hope you have a great election day.